The novel itself is different than anything I've written in that it's built of all these different components and pieces and voices, and hopefully they all come together and coalesce to tell the story in a pretty straight, complete narrative. But the novel begins in 1962 in a village I invented called Porto Vergogna, Italy, which means port of shame. And it's near the Cinque Terre. It's the sixth village, which, because I didn't know that much about the first five, I had to invent one. And so that's where the novel begins in 1962. And it begins really pretty simply with this actress named Dee Moray arriving by boat in this village that you can only reach by boat or by walking in by trail. These villages are etched into the cliffside. And so this woman arrives, and there's a young man named Pasquale Tursi. His family owns this village, or owns this the inn in this village, a hotel called the Hotel Adequate View, which was the title of the novel for the first 10 years that I was unable to finish it. And while Pasquale has been living in this village, he's been waiting for life to come find him. He's been waiting mostly for Americans to come, for tourism to find its way to this place. The novel then picks up almost 50 years later. We find out Dee Moray was an actress working on the set of Cleopatra with Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor in 1962, and that she has fled the set of that movie for some reason. And there's a young publicist named Michael Dean who was sent to find her. So now the action picks up 50 years later, and Michael Dean is now a successful producer. He has an assistant named Claire, and every Friday he has what he calls Wild Pitch Friday. When he doesn't come into work, but his assistant Claire has to hear pitches from all the people that Robert has ever known, his old business partners, the guy who used to sell him cocaine, the women he slept with, the men he slept with, his pool boys gardeners pool boy. All these people come in and pitch whatever idea they have, mostly for awful TV shows. Michael Dean has hit a place in his career and a place in the culture in which we're all just sort of watching reality television. So that's mostly what he's producing. So one day, though, as Claire's sitting there doing her work, this old Italian man comes in, and he begins pitching this story about a beautiful actress who arrives in his village in 1962. And she listens for quite a while before she realizes he's not pitching at all. He's actually trying to find this actress. So I'm going to pick up there when she calls her boss, Michael Dean. I'm just going to read a short section from him, and then I'm actually going to do the verboten thing, jump to the very end of the book and read the last little bit we get of Michael Dean. So Michael Dean is this producer who, in Italy in 1962, is a young man, and now we find him almost 50 years later. Chapter 5, a Michael Dean production. Recently, Hollywood Hills, California. The Dean of Hollywood reclines in silk pajamas on a chaise on his lanai, sipping a fresca with ginseng and looking out over the trees to the glittering lights of Beverly Hills. The first impression one gets of Michael Dean is a man constructed of wax, or perhaps prematurely embalmed. After all these years, it may be impossible to trace the sequence of facials, spa treatments, mud baths, cosmetic procedures, lifts and staples, collagen implants, outpatient touch-ups, tannings, Botox injections, cyst and growth removals, and stem cell facial injections that have caused a 72-year-old man to have the face of a 9-year-old Filipino girl. Trying to picture what Michael Dean looked like as a young man in Italy 50 years ago, based on his appearance now, is like standing on Wall Street, trying to understand the topography of Manhattan Island before the Dutch arrived. He's sitting now on his lanai. Open on his lap is a script, the sequel to Night Ravagers, exterior, Los Angeles night. A black Trans Am speeds toward a burning Getty Museum. His assistant, Claire, has pronounced the script not even good by crap standards. And while Claire's critical limbo stick is set too high, in this case, given the shrinking margin in movies and the shit business the first Night Ravagers did, Michael has to agree. This is a view he's looked at for 20 years, and yet somehow it seems new to him this late afternoon. The sun sliding over the green and glassed hills. Michael sighs with the contentedness of a man back on top. It's remarkable the difference a year can make. Not long ago, he'd stopped seeing the beauty in this view, in everything. He'd begun to fear that the end had come. Not death. Dean men never succumb before 90, but something worse, obsolescence. He was in a terrible slump, with nothing resembling a hit in almost a decade. His only recent credit of any kind, the first Night Ravagers movie, which was really more of a discredit. His run seemingly over now, Michael was on his way to being one of those ancients that haunt the dining room at the Riviera Country Club, spooning soup and dithering on about Doris Day and Daryl Zanuck. But it turned out the old Dean magic wasn't quite finished. It's what he loves about this town and this business. One simple idea, one good pitch, and you're back in. He didn't even understand entirely the pitch that brought him back, this Hookbook. Hookbook is a website and TV show they have in which people register, like Facebook, and for dates, and then they choose the most disturbed and emotionally distraught people, and they send them on dates and then film them. So it's hookbook.net, and it's this giant hit. He didn't even understand this idea, Hookbook. He only pretends to grasp all the computer, bloggy, twitty, geegaw business. But you could tell by the reaction of his tight-assed, impossible to please assistant Claire that it was big. So he did what he did best. He pitched the shit out of it. And now Michael Dean is back on every call sheet in town, on every master list for every spec script and every sizzle reel. Just thinking about it makes him feel 30 again and causes a tingling excitement in his lap. Or wait, is that the blue pill he took an hour ago? Oh yes, there it is. Kicking in right on schedule, beneath the script, decrepit nerve terminals and endothelial cells release nitric oxide into the corpus caversonum, which stimulates the synthesis of cyclic GMP, stiffening the well-used muscle cells and flooding the old spongy tissue with blood. The script rises in his lap like the flag at Iwo Jima. Well, hello there. Michael sets the script on the garden table next to his fresca, pulls himself up, and starts toward the house for Kathy. His silk pajama pants straining, Michael shuffles past the gravity pool, the life-size chessboard, the koi pond, Kathy's exercise ball and yoga mat, the wrought iron outdoor Tuscan brunch table. He spots wife number 4 through the open kitchen door in yoga pants and a tight t-shirt. He gets the full effect of his recent investment in her, the top-of-the-line viscous silicone gel sacks implanted in her retromammary glands for minimal capsular contracture and scarring between breast tissue and pectoralis muscle, replacing the old, slightly drooping silicone sacks. It's hot. Kathy's always telling him not to shuffle. It makes you look 100, and Michael reminds himself to pick up his feet. She's just turned her back to him when he steps through the open slider and into the kitchen. "Excuse me, miss," he says to his wife, positioning himself so she can see his pajama tent pole. "You order the wood pizza?" But she has those infernal earbuds in and hasn't seen or heard him, or maybe she's just pretending she hasn't. When things were their worst the last 2 years, Michael sensed a whiff of condescension from her, a nurse's on-duty patience in her tone. Kathy has reached the magical half his age mark, 36 to his 72. Michael's made a late career of 30-something women. It's scandalous when a man his age dips into the 20s, but no one flinches when the woman is in her 30s. Here you could be 100, date a 30-year-old, and still seem respectable. Unfortunately, Kathy is also 5 inches taller than him, and this is the truly unbridgeable gap. Sometimes he gets an unpleasant picture in his mind of their lovemaking, of him scurrying across her hilly landscape like a randy elf. He comes around the corner and positions himself so she can see the disturbance in his pajama pants. She looks up, then down, then up again. She removes her earbuds. "Hi, honey, what's up?" Before he can say the obvious, Michael's cell phone vibrates, jumping on the counter between them. Kathy slides the buzzing phone to him, and if not for the chemical help, her lack of interest might endanger Michael's condition. He checks the number on the phone. "Claire? 4:45 on a Wild Pitch Friday? What could this be? What is it, Claire?" She rambles, chatters, titters. My God, he thinks, this girl with her unshakable middle-brow taste, her world-weary faux cynicism. He always warns her about cynicism. It's as thin as an $80 suit. She's a great reader, but she lacks the cool clarity for producing. I don't love it, she'll say about an idea, as if love has anything to do with it. Michael's other producing partner, Danny, calls Claire the canary, as in coal mine, and half-jokingly suggests they use her as a reverse barometer. If the canary likes it, we pass. For instance, even though she admitted Hookbook was a big idea, she begged him not to produce it. Claire, after all the films you've produced, is it really the kind of thing you want to be known for making? Michael, money is the kind of thing I want to be known for making. On the phone, Claire is at her mumbling, apologetic worst, droning on about Wild Pitch Friday, about some old Italian guy, and Michael starts to interrupt. Claire, he says, but the girl won't even pause for breath. Claire, again, but his assistant won't let him in. The Italian guy is looking for an old actress, somebody named, and Claire utters a name that momentarily takes his breath. Dee Moray. Michael Dean's legs go out from under him. The phone drops from his right hand onto the counter as the fingers on his left hand skitter for purchase. Only Kathy's quick reflexes keep him from falling all the way to the floor, from possibly hitting his head on the counter and impaling himself on his erection. Michael, are you okay? Kathy asks. Is it another stroke? Dee Moray. So this is what ghosts are like, Michael thinks. Not white figures haunting your dreams, but old names buzzed over cell phones. He waves his wife off and grabs the phone from the counter. It's not a stroke, Kathy. Let me go. He concentrates on breathing. A man so rarely gets the full sweep of his life. But here's Michael Dean, chemically enhanced erection straining his silk pajama pants in the open kitchen of his Hollywood Hills home, holding onto a tiny wireless telephone and speaking across 50 years. Don't move, I'll be right there. So I'm just going to read just a little bit from the end. And I want to read a little bit from the end because it was the part of the book I always felt like I was writing to, this big swirling present tense ending. So I'm just going to give you this little bit of Michael Dean after most of the action's been resolved, and I sort of put the characters back into their worlds. And this is Michael Dean at the end of the book, which won't give anything away. There's an epigraph at the end from Milan Kundera. There would be nothing more obvious, more tangible than the present moment. And yet it eludes us completely. All the sadness in life lies in that fact. This is a love story, Michael Dean says. But really, what isn't? Doesn't the detective love the mystery, or the chase, or the nosy female reporter who is even now being held against her wishes in an empty warehouse on the waterfront? Surely the serial murderer loves his victims, and the spy loves his gadgets, or his country, or the exotic counter-spy. The ice trucker is torn between his love for ice and truck. And the competing chefs go crazy for scallops. And the pawn shop guys adore their junk, just as the housewives live for catching glimpses of their own Botoxed brows in gilded hall mirrors. And the rocked-out dude on roids totally wants to shred the ass of the tramp-tatted girl on Hookbook. And because this is reality, they are all in love, madly, truly, with the body mic clipped to their back buckle, and the producer casually suggesting just one more angle, just one more Jell-O shot. And the robot loves his master, Alien loves his saucer, Superman loves Lois, Lex, and Lana. Luke loves Leia till he finds out she's his sister, and the exorcist loves the demon even as he leaps out the window with it in full soulful embrace, as Leo loves Kate, and they both love the sinking ship. And the shark, God, the shark loves to eat, which is what the mafioso love too, eating and money and Polly and Omerta, the way the cowboy loves his horse, loves the corseted girl behind the piano bar, and sometimes loves the other cowboy. As the vampire loves night and neck, and the zombie, don't even start with the zombie, sentimental fool. Has anyone ever been more lovesick than a zombie, that pale, dull metaphor for love? All animal craving and lurching, outstretched arms, his very existence a sonnet about how much he wants those brains. This too is a love story. And in the room, the Dutch financiers with the 40 mil to kill wait for Michael Dean to elaborate, but he just sits there with his index finger steepled in front of his mouth. A love story. He'll speak when he's ready. This is his room, after all. He's only sorry he won't be able to attend his own funeral, because he'd leave that fucking room with a deal for a network pilot and a reality show set in hell.